Hey, how's it going? I'm back with another video. How nice is that? It's been a little while. So today's video is just going to be a short video on a theory I have for Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm pretty hyped for this movie if you couldn't tell already, so just wanted another excuse to talk about it. If you haven't seen it already, check out my reaction to the trailer. Just me and my brother. It was great. Really felt like a kid again, that level of excitement. Really happy about how that video turned out, so please go show it some love if you haven't already. So what I want to talk about today, I'm pretty sure has been discussed already. I highly doubt I'm the first one to talk about this theory. There are probably some other videos on it. I really haven't watched any. This is just me and my thoughts and my opinions. And pure speculation, I don't know anything. I'm not one of those insiders who just find stuff out about movies that haven't come out yet. So this is just me discussing what I think could possibly go down in Spider-Man No Way Home. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then please feel free to stick around. Watch the video. Everyone is welcome here, as I usually say. So if you've seen any Spider-Man movies or know anything about the character of Spider-Man, then you know how important the character of Uncle Ben is to the origin of Spider-Man. He's pretty much the reason why Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I mean, who could forget those famous words?
I'm already on my ass, mate.
No, not those.
If you could do good things for other people, you had a moral obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here. Not choice, responsibility.
I mean, that's close, like, that's basically it, but not quite the pairing of words that I would personally use.
With great power comes great responsibility.
There we go, that's the one. Now, when I found out Spider-Man was coming to the MCU, I was overjoyed. And since then, I've enjoyed Tom Holland's performance as Spider-Man, as well as the two movies that he starred in. They're not quite as dramatic or emotional as some of the other Spider-Man movies that are out there, but they're really entertaining, and overall, I really do enjoy this version of Peter Parker. There's a vocal group of people out there that really don't, but I do. I think he captures the perfect youthful energy that this version of Peter Parker needs. But one thing about the MCU Spider-Man movies that I'm not the biggest fan of is that we really don't know why this Peter Parker is Spider-Man. We know how he became Spider-Man. You know, he's bitten by the spider, got these powers, created web shooters. We know all of that based on other versions of the character. The thing is, we don't know why this version of Peter Parker chose to put on that mask and costume and save lives. In pretty much every adaptation of Spider-Man, we see his Uncle Ben trying to instill with knowledge. He shrugs it off. He gets a little cocky with his newfound powers, doesn't stop a burglar even though he can. Same burglar shoots Uncle Ben. Peter realizes the error of his ways and becomes Spider-Man. Now we circle back to the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and one of my problems with them is that there is not one single mention of Uncle Ben in any of them. The closest we get are his initials on a briefcase in Far From Home, but it's a blink and you'll miss it sort of thing, and it's assumed that it was destroyed at some point in that movie. I mean, look at all the destruction in that movie, and Peter doesn't seem to care about it that much. Okay, I think you get the idea here. No mention of Uncle Ben in the MCU Spider-Man movies. And that's kind of a problem because the character of Uncle Ben is crucial to the origin of Spider-Man. I feel like people will chalk that up to bad writing, or maybe a lack of compassion for the source material, and it very well could be that. But No Way Home comes out in about 3 months' time, and it's got me thinking that maybe the lack of a mention of Uncle Ben in these movies is deliberate. And with that, let's get into the theory, you know, the whole reason you clicked on this video. First of all, I believe at the very least Uncle Ben will finally be mentioned at some point in No Way Home. Even if the theory I'm about to discuss ends up being false, I do firmly believe that he'll finally get his name dropped in No Way Home. But if this theory ends up being true, I think it would be a really nice, emotionally complex way to tie everything together. So I think we all know at this point that No Way Home will involve the multiverse, and that characters from the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, as well as the Amazing Spider-Man series, will pop up in this movie, including the two previous Spider-Men, played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Still a rumor at this point, but I think we can all say that it's going to happen. So I want you to imagine this. At some point in No Way Home, we get a flashback to Peter before he has his powers, before he got bitten by the spider, and he's there with his Aunt May, played of course by Marissa Tomei, and then into the frame walks Uncle Ben, little tilt up, and we see it's Tobey Maguire. So after that, whether or not we actually see it in the movie, the origin plays out in the way we're used to. Uncle Ben dies, Peter could have stopped it, boom, he's Spider-Man. So fast forward to about Act 3 of No Way Home. If you remember my reaction to the trailer, in that video I predicted that around that point is when the other two Spider-Men, played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, will show up. Tom Holland's Peter Parker sees the two of them in their costumes, then Tobey's Peter Parker takes his mask off, Tom's Peter Parker sees his face, And he has this moment of like, oh my god, Uncle Ben. And then Tobey's all like, no, I'm Peter Parker, but then maybe he'll bring up his Uncle Ben. Andrew could step in like, yeah, I had an Uncle Ben too. It's just something that the three of them could bond over because they all share that pain of losing their father figure. If Uncle Ben in the main MCU timeline is played by Tobey Maguire, then that'll be the excuse for Tobey's Peter Parker and Tom's Peter Parker to have that instant chemistry. He'll be like a new mentor to him. He could even be the one to say the iconic line, with great power comes great responsibility. A line we haven't heard spoken in a Spider-Man movie in over a decade, not counting that one alternate ending to Amazing Spider-Man 2, because it was deleted. Doesn't count. The thing that I would ultimately compare this theory to is what they did in the Flash TV show. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen at least the first 2 seasons, what I'll be talking about happens near the end of season 2. But if you've seen the show, you remember in season 2, Zoom comes into play. Zoom poses as Jay Garrick, you know, the original Flash from DC Comics, and the characters all really believe he's Jay Garrick. Then they find out later that he's actually Zoom. And I think at one point, Caitlin Snow gets kidnapped and she's locked in Zoom's lair along with this other random guy who's in some cage. We don't see his face, he's got this mask covering his face. So a few episodes later, Zoom kills Henry Allen, Barry's father. You know, the guy who spent most of Barry's life behind bars for a murder he did not commit. And then this season, he's finally proven innocent and released from prison. Barry's really glad about that, and then Zoom shoves his arm through his chest and kills him. So then they, of course, stop Zoom, and then they free the guy that Zoom had locked up. Turns out he's the real Jay Garrick. In the season finale, his mask comes off, and he looks just like Barry's father. And Barry's all like, oh my god, like, he looks just like my father, and he gets all emotional. The whole theory about Tobey Maguire being Uncle Ben in the MCU is pretty much that. I think it'd be a great moment, and a great way to really bring home the whole multiverse element of No Way Home, you know, so it could be a little bit more than just a fan service thing. Not that I have a problem with that. I'm a fan, and I'm being serviced, and the fan service in this movie is going to kick ass. Hopefully they tie it into the story organically. But I think this is a pretty plausible theory. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, might not even happen at all, but if it does, then I called it ahead of time. That'd be kind of nice. Again, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's thought of this, who's made a video on it, so I don't know, go check out some other videos, see what they have to say. And yeah, that pretty much does it for today's video. It was a quicker one, so I hope you all enjoyed it. Got some more videos on the way, another Spider-Man one that I want to do, so be on the lookout for that. I'll be watching Shang-Chi tomorrow night, so maybe I'll make a video on that. If I feel like it, you know, don't get your hopes up. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for me today. Stay frosty, all you beautiful people, and have a great one.